It's 25 February 2011. Thank you for joining us. I got Josh in the studio to make sense out of everything.
Oh, yeah.
So you're going to give me a straight skinny on what everything is all about, right, Josh?
No.
It's incredible, yeah. Isn't it? I mean,
I tried and I just couldn't.
I know. It's amazing. It's amazing. Anyway, we thank you for joining us. We're going to try and go over what has transpired in the past day with the events in Libya. And if you ask me, this is all created by design. It is following so closely with what happened to Iraq, and I'll explain to you my thoughts on that. All I want is the truth now. Oh, man. Just give me some truth now. All I want is the truth now. Just give me some truth now. Welcome back to Power Hour, ladies and gentlemen. All I want is the truth. I don't care what it is. Just like we were talking about with the IRS yesterday, cracking the code. Amazing guest. We had Sarah Waltner on the program yesterday. Hey, IRS. Hey, FBI. Hey, George Bush. Bill Clinton, Obama. All we want is the truth. We're so tired of being lied to. Let me go back and reflect on another lie. Only because we have to look at the buildup of Libya, or the military intervention in Libya, which I think is going to happen because the President and Hillary Clinton have made too many statements about a global movement together. A global movement. And I think that what we're going to be seeing is a military intervention in Libya or in the Middle East by the United States, or, a.k.a. UN. Now, this is Barry Zwicker reporting on what happened in the Gulf War I lies. You'll recall that they had to get everybody incensed against Saddam Hussein to get him to go to war with Iraq because we're kind of going, hey, wait a minute, what do we care about Kuwait's oil field? Well, they had to get the people incensed. And the way they did that was a story about the Republican Guard was throwing babies out of the incubator. Very similar to what's being said about Libya. And now they're going to torture babies in Libya. So we got to go in there and save these babies. All right, listen to Barry Zwicker. This is only about 2.5 minutes here.
Iraq attacks Kuwait, claiming the Kuwaitis are slant drilling into Iraq's oil fields. U.S. President George Herbert Walker Bush pushes for a land war against Iraq. But polls show the U.S. public is split 50-50 on that idea. Then comes this eyewitness testimony before a congressional committee from a 15-year-old Kuwaiti girl. The claim is she cannot be identified for fear of reprisals.
While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns. They took the babies out of the incubators, and left the children to die on the cold floor.
The U.S. public is outraged. The result? Support for land war zooms. It's a turning point. Desert Storm is launched. 135,000 Iraqis are killed. An estimated 1 million Iraqis, many of them children and old people, then die as a result of 10 years of sanctions. One small problem. There never were any incubator baby deaths. Not one. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation's investigative flagship program, The Fifth Estate, reveals the girl to be the Kuwaiti ambassador's daughter, given her lines and coached in acting by the giant American PR firm Hill & Knowlton. It's one phase in a $10 million joint U.S.-Kuwaiti campaign of deception. This man is lying.
I myself buried 14 newborn babies that had been taken from their incubators.
This man is lying.
And they had kids in incubators, and they were thrown out of the incubators so that Kuwait could be systematically dismantled.
There were a lot of people who participated in a conspiracy. Yes, an out-and-out conspiracy of fake organizations, false documents, fraud, and disinformation. So, if a new man named Bush is in the White House and helps engineer a brazen deception in order to achieve global geopolitical goals as well as domestic and personal ones, it wouldn't be a first, would it?
This story just incenses me so much that they would use this. By the way, Hill & Knowlton, the advertising agency at the time, was paid $10 million to produce that
fraud. That fraud. So they got this little girl who's very cute, very attractive, and said she was a volunteer at the hospital in Kuwait to say a lie, to cry in front of everybody. She did that before several hearings. And Congress, of course, said, oh, well, we can't let little babies die. We need
except in America. You know, we can, as long as they're not born, then we can let them die.
Oh, yeah. Another whole issue.
Sorry.
But then they say, well, we can't let these babies die, so let's go to Iraq and just kill them with bombs in the first place. Now, when we come back, another lie. The oil well fires. Let's talk about what the American Gulf War Veterans Association had to say about it. The oil well fires. Who started those? And now we get into Gaddafi going to do the same thing. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this break. Oh, man, how we are coming to that conclusion, so many of us at the same time, because we've been lied to and lied to. The fraud is just way too much. Let's get back to the news, because I want to cover the story about the oil well fires in Kuwait. Because of the fact that they're doing this similar situation now and trying to get you involved in this build-up to a NATO invasion of Libya, and I guarantee you that's what's coming, or that's what they've got in mind, then we're looking at needing to create the reason. Well, what better reason than Muammar Gaddafi is going to blow up his own oil wells? And then you're going to have $200 a barrel fuel or $200 a barrel oil, and then you're going to have $10 gasoline a gallon.
Can I say something? I think the priorities are just totally screwed up in this world. We watch him, shoot people with airplanes and bomb them with airplanes, but that's not enough to go and take him out. He's got to mess with our money before we'll do anything. And I think that, that just shows the greed and the love of money in this world, and that is the root of all evil, and that just blows my mind. I just realized that. Yeah,
you're right. We are screwed up. But you know what? I don't even know that is file footage or it's real footage of what's happening now. How do we know? I mean, if they will fabricate a girl talking about throwing babies out of an incubator, and that is what motivated me to go back to Kelly and get those vaccines that, really affected my life, which, of course, that has turned into be a very positive thing because I took action on it. But, listeners, think about the extent to which they will go if they will kill 3,000 people in the towers or a million Iraqis in Iraq.
I just think it's sad that, the loss of human life is not as important as the loss of profit to these people. It breaks my heart. Well,
this is no new revelation, of course, but, I mean, it is when you kind of start putting it together and you realize, whoa, bombing them, well, hey, that's just a side effect, but that's just a... Okay, let me talk about what happened with the oil well fires, then I'll get into the health news, because the Gulf War Veterans Association, American Gulf War Veterans Association, in 2003, issued this statement, and I want you to know it got a lot of attention. Now, this is in 2003, remember. For the past 6 years, the American Gulf War Veterans Association has received numerous reports that from veterans stating that U.S. forces were responsible for the setting of the oil well fires at the end of the Gulf War. These testimonies are now being taken very seriously in light of recent revelations of the events that occurred during the first Gulf War. Joyce Riley, spokesperson for the American Gulf War Veterans Association, was quoted as saying, "There was intentional misinformation given to the American people to generate support for Desert Storm, often created by advertising agencies such as Hill and Knowlton. Revelations regarding the incubator story in which Republican Guard were reported to have thrown babies out of their incubators onto the cold floor turned out to be false and a fraud on the American people." The St. Petersburg Times disproved the report of satellite photos showing 1,000 Iraqi tanks amassing at the Saudi border. April Glaspie, a U.S. ambassador, gave tacit approval to Saddam Hussein to invade Iraq by saying, "We have no opinion on your border dispute with Kuwait." John Shalikashvili, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and William Perry, Secretary of Defense, wrote in a memo obtained by the American Gulf War Veterans Association on May 25, 1994, I quote, There is no information, classified or unclassified, that indicates that chemical or biological weapons were used in the Gulf War. General Norman Schwarzkopf, NBC Nuclear, Biological, and Chemical Logs, also obtained by the American Gulf War Veterans Association, dated February 27, 1991 and March 3, 1991, clearly disprove the above statement. One veteran has now stepped forward, and I will tell you it is now 5 veterans that have stepped forward, given a detailed account on how he and others in special teams moved forward of the front, behind enemy lines, ahead of U.S. forces, and then set charges on the wellheads. We were mustered into the briefing tent, at which point a gentleman whom I first had thought to be an American began to brief us on the operation. I was concerned because he was not wearing a U.S. uniform and insignias. The information provided over a series of meetings with this veteran corroborates reports from other veterans who are totally unconnected to this individual. This testimony brings into serious question the integrity of the U.S. government as it provided information to the American public and military during the last Gulf War. The American Gulf War Veterans Association is presently dissenting on the war and has been joined by the British Gulf War Veterans and Families Association. Riley states that not only is it our opinion that the Department of Defense has not been forthcoming about the severity of our military illnesses, significant concern is now being raised over causation as well. That is the American Gulf War Veterans Association news release, and guess how many media wanted to see our evidence? 0. Several called me and said, "You've got to be kidding. Is this really true?" Yes. According to our information, it is true. Oh, man, I could never cover that story. Well, that's because it's none of your business, because they want you to hear only agenda. So think about it, ladies and gentlemen, when we begin the run-up to the Libyan War or the run-up to the Middle East War, which will probably be the Third World War, where do you think we're headed? Because of where we came from. I can't say how angry I am at the loss of human life that happens simply because they want more. That's all there is to it. When you start seeing things happen on television, correlate it to what you've heard before, or correlate it to the fact that it's all about agenda. The increase in the price of oil is by design. Yes, they want to increase the North Dakota and Alaska oil fields. This has been public knowledge for a long time, increase the drilling. And it is increasing there. Believe me, it is increasing in North Dakota and the movement toward Alaska. And why are they doing it? Because they know they're going to be able to drive the price up, and you're going to have no choice. If we're shut off from the oil in the Middle East, better for them, because we already have all the oil we could possibly need for like the next 200 years.
Yeah.
And it's all by design to break your back.